What it is, my 10 piece and grease here, and we need to talk about that new war update. Now, have no fear, there's not going to be any spoilers here. We're going to start off talking about some of the new additions with this update, and then we're going to move into my experience with the new war quest. Again, no spoilers, and talk about what the future holds as far as Warframe goes. All right, so let's start with the new additions. First of all, we have this guy, Caliban. And Caliban looks great. I will say that the overall sentient look is better completed with this alternate helm than it is the Among Us helm. I don't like that standard Among Us helm. This helm definitely looks better. But now that we know Caliban looks good, is he actually a good Warframe? Well, that actually turns out to be a little bit more complicated than you would imagine. All right, so he's got an adaption passive, which on the surface you would think, oh, that's great. But let's start with his first ability here. Razor Gyre is this Revenant slash Ureli kind of water disc ability that unfortunately doesn't seem to do a significant amount of damage, even to fodder enemies on Hydron of all places. This is definitely an ability that, in its current state, I would recommend you would remove with the helmet system. The next ability is going to be Sentient Wrath, which does a ground slam, emits a wave that takes out enemies, and if it doesn't, it lifts them in the air where they are vulnerable to more damage. This is at least crowd control, if nothing else. I do wish it was a little bit more powerful, but hopefully DE can turn the knob up on this frame a little bit. Next up, we have Lethal Progeny, which this is the ability that allows you to summon up to 3 sentients, and they do tend to suffer from that AI pathing a little bit that we've seen in so many other Warframes that can convert enemies to allies, control specters, they have clones, etc. About the only one that I can think of that actually does a good job of this is probably Wukong's clone, but that's because he utilizes your builds with your mods, with your weapons, with your builds, with your mods, which your sentients don't have that luxury here. So they at least take aggro from you, if nothing else, and we can't discount that value, to say the least. And then next up we have Fusion Strike, which is kind of like Wisp's fourth, which it should probably come as no surprise to you that I use the helmet to get rid of that ability on Wisp. And also I would recommend that you do the same with this ability on Caliban. Again, unless DE turns the knob up on this Warframe, yeah. I don't think that he's necessarily a bad Warframe. I just think that DE should have made him a little bit more potent, to say the least. Now, if you're wondering where do I get Caliban, once you have completed the new war quest, and only once you have completed the new war quest, there will be new types of bounties on Cetus and Fortuna called Narmer bounties. These are level 50 to 70. They will have Caliban parts, they will have new mods, they will have Archon weapons. So, yeah, you're going to need to run bounties after you complete the quest. I suspect that's probably going to change because I'd be willing to bet some players out there are really going to raise a stink about this. DE is going to fold and make them available, those bounties, to everybody. Again, it's just an assumption, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. Now let's talk about Caliban's melee weapon, the Venado. It's an okay scythe-style melee weapon. It's not a bad one. There are better scythe-style melee weapons in the game. So if your heart is really set on a scythe, may I suggest the Reaper Prime? It's just a better version of this. But this isn't a bad melee weapon. I just want to stress that. Next up, in case you're wondering where you get the Venado, you actually get it from your clan's dojo in the Tenno Lab. Once they've completed the research, you can duplicate that and build it in your foundry. Now, with that being said, let's talk about Hero Prime. Now, I am impressed with DE's job on Hero Prime, to say the least. Hero Prime looks great, and I think the weapon selection for him is really fantastic. So, good job to DE here. Now, is Hero a good Warframe? Well, the reality is, I've always been partial to Hero, and I've always thought that he's a decent Warframe. That hasn't changed. But with this, sorry about that, with this update, they actually tweaked a couple of his abilities. And while it's not earth shattering, the reality is that if you didn't like Hero before, you're not going to like Hero now. The people that are really going to benefit the most from these tweaks to his abilities are going to be people that already like Hero. Yeah. But again, I don't think he's a bad Warframe. I think he's always been a decent Warframe, and it is much appreciated that DE did take the time to tweak his abilities. So, thank you, DE. Now, did you know that Hero was released into the game with the Scourge and the Knell? So it's no coincidence that Hero was primed with the Scourge Prime and the Knell Prime. Good job on DE's part. Good decision making. You can tell they definitely put some thought and some effort into this. It's very much appreciated. In fact, I purchased the Prime Access for Hero to show my support for DE. And they're very wise decision making here. But let's start with the Knell Prime, and let me say right up front, I did not like the regular Knell, so I don't like the Knell Prime. But it's not a bad secondary weapon. It's just going to take a certain type of player that wants a sniper type of gameplay. One shot, one enemy, one target, rinse and repeat. And that's what the Knell is. And if players are looking for that, it's right here. While I may not like it, it doesn't mean that it's a bad weapon. It just means that it doesn't suit my playstyle. Particularly given the fact that we are currently in a meta in which we have map nuking weapons at our disposal, I'm probably more apt to go that direction rather than just one target pew, pew, pew. So, again, do with that information what you will. Next up, we have the Scourge Prime, and it utilizes that gimmick that we've talked about in the past. In fact, there are several of these in the game. For example, the Jablock, wherein that you throw them and they create some sort of effect. In the Scourge Prime's case, it creates bullet magnets that pull pulls shots into enemies' faces. Yeah. You don't have to throw it, though. If you don't want to use that, you don't have to. Again, we're in a meta where we have weapons at our disposal that can nuke maps, so why would we take the extra step of throwing away our primary just to use our secondary when we can just use a completely different primary and just, nuke the world, right? But with that being said, again, you're not being forced to throw it. You don't have to. You can just use it as a regular weapon, and actually, it packs a pretty potent punch. Take, for example, the fact that the Scourge actually has inherent corrosive, and while it may not be the armor-stripping king it once was, you can combine that with heat for further armor strip, and then for good measure, throw on a little viral to bypass any remaining armor that heat and corrosive doesn't strip away. So it packs a nice little punch, and this is one of those rare weapons that can run both corrosive and viral at the same time. So yeah. Again, nice little touch there, I must say. We also got a few other new weapons. We got a new bow, the Nataruk, as well as a pistol-style amp called the Scirocco. And we got a new dagger-style melee weapon called... No, where's it at? The Rumblejack. Now, let me say right up front here that I really wish that this would have stayed with our character. Those of you that played the New War Quest know exactly what I'm talking about. I really wish this had not come to our Warframes and instead stayed with that particular character. Yeah. As such, it's not a horrible weapon. It can get you through the star chart, and with the right build, you can take it into Steel Path. Are there better melee weapons? Well, yeah, obviously. But, we'll kind of leave it at that. Next up, we have the Nataruk, and I know some people out there were really disappointed we didn't get another map nuking bow, but There's already several in the game, so I don't think that we really need that, if I'm being completely honest. And furthermore, if you're patient and you're skilled enough, you can wait for enemies to group up and take them all out with this one shot. So yeah, it can do a fair amount of nuking on its own. It's a very potent bow, and it does a substantial amount of damage. So it's worth definitely keeping. In fact, for me personally, it's definitely the star of the show. Now, in case you're wondering, well, Peace, where the hell do I get the Nataruk? Where do I get the Rumblejack? And where do I get the Scirocco pistol-style amp? Well, actually, again, once you have completed the New War quest, they will be available to you. So, with that being said, let's go take a look at the Scirocco pistol-style amp, and then we will talk a little bit about the quest. Again, no spoilers. So this is the Scirocco style pistol amp. I will be interested to try it against Eidolons because it is a crit focused amp. So yeah, I'll be interested to give that a go. Alright, now let's talk the New War quest. To say that it was buggy or glitchy would be an understatement. Yes, very much so. Let me count the ways that I encountered these. I suffered a crash. I suffered a complete lockup and had to unplug and start completely over with my PS5. I know some people had issues with the balloon on Cetus. If you know what that means, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll have to get to it in your quest. I know some folks had issues with the Fortuna stealth section, which it's probably that the waypoint didn't update correctly. I didn't really have any problem with that, but the one that I did have issue with was the Cetus stealth section. The deacons had full-on wall hacks. They were seeing me through the floors, through the ceilings, through the walls. They were spotting me from 500 yards away. And the worst of all was the fact that they would stun lock me in mid-dash. Now my focus trees are upgraded. And they would literally spot me mid-dash and stun lock me. My character would be stuck in the shock animation in mid-air. I'm not even joking. And this happened over and over again. To say that I was PO'd would be an understatement. Yeah. Definitely some bugs and glitches. I know DE's working hard on patching those and releasing hot fixes, so if you haven't quite gotten to the New War quest yet, you're in luck because you're going to get it in its really patched and good state, which you're going to actually have it over on me, who did not have it in that condition. But where is DE going to go with the next quest? How are they going to go bigger? Well, the truth is they don't have to. The key takeaway, the key criticism I would offer DE is refinement. Refine, refine, refine. The music, terrific. The voice acting, terrific. The cinematics, terrific. The writing, it was good. I think that there needed to be a little bit more cohesiveness to the writing. I think the pacing needed to be better controlled. I think that the characters needed more depth. And I think that the writers really needed to make the player feel something, anything. There was only one point in the very start of the quest where I actually felt anything. And then after that, nothing. If we think about some of the best quests in the game, whether we're talking New Vegas, whether we're talking Fallout 3, whether we're talking Oblivion or Skyrim, whether we're talking the Mass Effect trilogy, etc., 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 there's so many out there. They all have really good pacing. The story is more cohesive. And most importantly, the writers made us feel something, which they kind of failed to do on this. So they don't need to go bigger on the next quest. They just need to refine it a little bit. So that's really kind of the key takeaway. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys and gals think down in the comments section below. Again, try to keep it spoiler free, please. Again, it's not for me, it's for other people that may come into the comments section. Again, if you post a spoiler, I will have to delete it. Not out of spite, mind you, but just out of trying to protect other people from being spoiled. And until next time, peace out.